can I describe myself at 18? Rightish wing, evangelical, Pentecostal Christian, doing mission work in the summer in Louisville, Kentucky, fasting and meditating, growing closer to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. This is actually the way I talked, by the way. But at the same time, playing in bars, singing in a Joni Mitchell cover band, protesting highway development in my patchwork skirt, while devouring books about creativity and encouraging my atheist anarchist friends to find their inner artists on the butcher paper that lined the walls of my bedroom. Oh, and also I was a vegetarian in Mississippi. I know in California this is commonplace, but in Mississippi, raging against factory farms and quoting Fast Food Nation is essentially akin to blasphemy. But at the same time, I went on a hunting trip with my bloodthirsty but well-meaning brother. This is a high honor in my family. Kane takes deer hunting very seriously, and not just anyone gets an invite. I remember him calling me to invite me and saying in his best Bubba voice, "I told my friends when they said I was crazy to bring you that you aren't against killing animals, but against factory farms. They're bad for the environment." It was the sweetest thing he had ever said to me. Even though so much of what I said was foreign and crazy to him, he was listening. And so I became affectionately known as Blair the Vegetarian Deer Slayer. So I thought I was living this life full of passion of heart that was tempered with balance of intellect. I thought I was living according to the shoulds of my conscience, but also the shoulds of the people around me. I was combining what I wanted with what people wanted from me. Growing up a middle-class white girl in the South is not hard living, but does come with its own set of rules. For a woman, your role models are Jesus, who came down from heaven and sacrificed himself for you, and your mom, who came down from her mother and sacrificed her needs for everyone. So this made it pretty easy to know what I was supposed to do. Some of you know me, might say that I have what we call an extreme personality. My mom says that I'm too much. You're just so intense. When I drink hard. And when it comes to exercise, it's either a million push-ups or no push-ups at all. And so I loved the crap out of my neighbor. I took that idea of self-sacrifice and putting the needs of others before mine to heart. I traveled the world after high school doing community service with Up With People. Thanks. We got some uppies in here. Good. And when college rolled around, I jumped headfirst into Campus Crusade for Christ, leading Bible study groups and mentoring girls and sometimes irking the leaders when I was vocal about my frustration with the contradictions between what Jesus taught and what they did, which was nothing. Where was their passion for social justice, good stewardship of God's creation? The life of a Christian should be uncomfortable and full of sacrifice. So the summer after my freshman year, I put Jesus' love into action by going to Louisville to work with several churches and refugees there. Taking long walks in the woods, memorizing Bible verses, singing and clapping in the predominantly black choir, quietly practicing Buddhist meditation in the chapel, and skipping lunches in order to fast and pray for the poor of the world in earnest. I was constantly looking for deeper ways to love and more varied paths to opening my mind, wherever those paths might be, while continuing inside of a religion that had only one path. It was hard for me to reconcile the two, so I just kept praying and contemplating and fasting, hoping to understand what I should do. It was also a summer of uncoverings of shame. While sitting in the dorm after dinner one night with a fellow wide-eyed Jesus lover, Delia, she made a confession. I masturbate. I was taken aback at her honesty, but was honestly relieved that I wasn't alone. I I do too. She looked at me sadly. I think it's keeping us from growing as Christians. Why don't we keep each other accountable? If you're ever feeling tempted, let me know so we can pray together. Yeah, that's a great idea. I know what you're thinking, but she was being serious. It wasn't innuendo. It was not innuendo. She was serious. So we held hands, that's all we did. We held hands, and we bowed our heads, and Delia prayed, Lord, please help us to treat our bodies as temples. Help us to resist the urge to be selfish, and give us strength to save all of that love for our future husbands. But I kept my own thoughts to myself, which were, masturbation creates a lot of really positive emotions in me. So how can that really be bad? But maybe she was right, I thought. So what's wrong with me that I don't feel guilty at all? I should feel guilt as a price of that pleasure. And I should want to stop. And it really made me feel bad. And I fasted and I prayed and kept hoping that it would make me feel what I was supposed to feel, what I should feel. So this next part, this is just a little aside. It's going to get a little rough in this next couple of paragraphs, but I just want you to know I'm okay, okay? I made it through. You will too. We'll be fine, okay? I want to preface, okay? All right, back to the story. In that same summer, I began having some dreams and recurring memories of a sexual past that I had long forgotten. Memories of my best friend's 13-year-old brother letting his hands, uninvited, wander to the unexplored places of my 8-year-old self while we watched the Temple of Doom and his sister slept. And his, watch this, as he beckoned me over to kiss him in front of his friend at the basketball court, showcasing the way my cheeks turned red as he did so. My first reaction was doubt. Was my memory really reliable? I was only 8. I didn't want it to be true because maybe I worried this had something to do with those dirty sexual urges I was having that summer. Maybe my childhood had not been what I thought, and I would now have to redefine who I was. So I called my parents, and I asked them if they remembered me saying anything about those sexual encounters, and I expected the tears and the gnashing of teeth, and boy, did I get them from my mom. She was compassionate and caring and heartbroken and sad for me. But she also started analyzing all of my subsequent behaviors through the lens of that childhood experience. My wild drinking in high school became a coping mechanism. My weight problem, a defense mechanism against ever being hurt again by keeping myself sexually unappealing. I was reeling with the idea that I should now look at every part of my life as a direct result of 2 moments when I was 8. When I got on the phone with my dad, the psychiatrist, as you can probably tell from the beard. I love this picture. It's so perfect. It's perfect. I love it. He said, as a psychiatrist, this happens frequently between boys in early adolescence who are experimenting with their new sexual feelings with girls that are younger and with whom they are usually very close. I kind of felt relieved. I didn't have to be a victim. But he immediately called back to apologize after a scathing response from my mother for what she overheard him say to her poor, victimized daughter. He said that he was sorry, that he had played the clinician role, when he should have worked himself up into the fatherly fury expected from a hyper-masculine Southerner, grabbing his gun and threatening to kill the son of a bitch. This is clearly not the kind of guy he is, as you can see. I now see these experiences as, these moments of budding sexuality of a boy who I'd grown up with and with whom I shared a great deal of love and affection. Yes, it was uninvited. And yes, I was too young to know what it meant. But it wasn't predatory. He was just trying to work out his own feelings, and it was a lot like me and my friend who stripped down doing nothing more shameful than being naked, but somehow knowing we weren't really supposed to do that. And in the South, sexual play in children was not something that should happen, not something you should talk about, and so it had to be viewed through a lens of shame and powerlessness. I wanted to put it behind me and not let it define me, but it was easier for others to explain it away by putting me in the role of victim and directing anger at my molester. I didn't feel angry about what happened. I only felt really guilty for not feeling what I should have felt. So I kept praying and fasting and meditating. And at that time, I didn't know that it didn't matter how much praying and fasting I did. You can't make yourself feel things that you don't feel or believe things that aren't true. But I didn't know that then. I didn't know that you couldn't. So I just kept doing it. And the pressure of trying to will myself into all of these shoulds just built and built until that dinner where I just lost it. At least 5 different meals in 2 weeks, the mission leaders had forgotten to get a vegetarian option for me. Finding it hard to remember that someone would ever make such a decision, and probably since they didn't really understand it, not really fully validating it. But tonight was Mexican night, and I couldn't wait for those beans and rice and cheese enchilada. So when I showed up for dinner and amongst the chicken and beef burritos, I found no vegetarian option. No bean burrito, nothing. I broke down and sobbed uncontrollably, collapsing into a chair and my face contorted. At every step, who I am has been denied validity. My choices, my voice, my desires, subjugated to this tyranny of shoulds. And the leader, overwhelmed by this display of emotion, was truly embarrassed and apologized for not having thought of me, offering to get me something to eat. And I calmed my breathing and dried my tears, fell in line and did what I should. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have overreacted. You know how intense I can be. Can I help clear the table? No? I'm probably just tired. I'll just go to my room, where I prayed and I fasted, and I meditated. Thank you.
Blair Overstreet.